up next, much like we had with Zoe this morning, who was talking about traditional Chinese medicine, and she actually did a food demo and created that winter porridge. We have Kimberly, who's going to be talking a little bit of the same kind of, related information, but in a different way. Like I said, a lot of our people on our event today are somewhat overlapping some things, but they have different ways that they're presenting and taking away from that, however it's resonating with you. So Kimberly, I'm going to give you access, right? Co-host access here. So bear with me one sec. Excuse me. And oh, is she on here? Kimberly's, oh, where'd she go? She fell off?
Yep. Yeah.
Oh, you're there. Okay.
No.
Hang on 1 second. Okay. I gave you access already. No, there you are. Okay. So Kimberly, if you hear any ding dongs or anything, just ignore that. I'll take care of taking care of the registrants, and I'll keep an eye on the chat as well. And just to let everybody know, the chat box, when we have multiple co-hosts, you can only chat with either of us. So if there's anything that's going across, across to everyone, just let us know and we'll speak it out. Okay. Thank you, Kimberly, for waiting. Go ahead.
Hello, everyone. I was going to say it's good morning here. I'm in Australia, so good evening to everyone. But I think everyone's watching from all over the world, so it doesn't matter what time of day it is. And I've just joined the last 2 sessions, which were wonderful. So thanks for having me as part of this wonderful Wellness Day. And I know it's the end of the day, and you've had a lot of wonderful information. Here's some more information to share. Everyone can see the presentation? Yes, okay, wonderful. So I'm just going to go through a PowerPoint, and I will try and keep track of time so that we have some time for some questions at the end. My topic for today is, I'll just go down here very quickly about myself before I jump in, about food therapy. I have a background and passion for nutrition and food on a very holistic approach. And I was living previously in Asia and China for the last 16 years, and very much into the energy of the food and different functions of food. So functional food is a very big topic, hot topic in Australia and in the Western countries, I know. And this takes it to a very sensorial experience with food, which you'll see when I slides. So I do a lot of other things as well. I love to be in the kitchen, not today, but that's where my heart is, as well as movement practices such as yin yoga and qigong. And I've written 2 books, all very inspired by simple everyday foods, but just with a different perspective or a different lens on them. So for example, people like sweet potatoes, and I see sweet potatoes with this food therapy or food energetics approach, and the benefit that they can help with your liver, for example, and your energy. So yeah, we'll dive in more on the nutritional elements. I'll try to keep it simple. It is a big topic, but I do want to introduce this concept. It's based on Chinese medicine, and I know Zoe was cooking wonderful porridge. I saw her photo on Instagram as soon as I got up this morning. So let's go straight in. So it's based on traditional Chinese medicine, a little bit of macrobiotic theory, and we can tie it into proteins and carbs at any, but I want everyone to sort of put their nutrition hats to one side and come with a beginner's mind, because we're going to be talking about cycles, lots of beautiful cycles of seasons and body care. So my definition here on therapy is the one being very a seasonal approach. So applying the healing, nourishing, rebalancing properties of food and functional food to your everyday selection of food. So eating what's local and what's seasonal. And then food energetics is understanding how the different food grows in nature. So for example, you guys are all in the Northern Hemisphere and you're in autumn going into winter, it's cold. So things like carrots and root vegetables that grow down and they're very, very earthing and grounding to be what you should be eating, but also what your body is craving, hopefully. And we're going to touch on a little bit of cooking in terms of energy. You can change the food's energy and also your energy just simply by different ways you cook that carrot. So I'm sure people have experienced TCM. A lot of people have experienced Ayurveda in the yoga world and in the natural health world for good reason. Ayurveda made it out a lot earlier. Traditional Chinese medicine has a language barrier. It has these funky meridians, as you can see in the meridian doll image here. So very, very complicated. And people like myself and Zoe and a few others are trying to uncomplicate it and make it simple, present information and all these ancient wisdoms as simple as possible. And what better place to start than the kitchen? So, oh, sorry, I can't move my, oh, there we go. So we use a lot of different words in nutrition in Chinese medicine, such as nourishing, tonifying, repairing, detoxing, opening, creating flow, supporting. So it's very much about this nourishing and creating health rather than in the West, we like to detox and cut things out, and which is good if people need to, absolutely. But it's about this creating this from the inside and understanding your body and the organs and the cycles of and patterns of nature. So our cycle in the presentation is a seasonal one. I think this is probably the easiest one. If anybody wants to take notes as well, I encourage you. You know, I think most people have got their notebooks. Or pop it in your planner. I was watching the sessions before, and I think that's wonderful. And you could apply a lot of the information here to make sure you're eating for your body, for your own cravings, and in the right season as well. So yeah, so spring, for example, is where I'm at in Australia. If anyone else is in South America or in the Southern Hemisphere, we are eating a lot of green foods. There's a different energy and quality about spring, summer. We want to get out of bed earlier and do more things. We're more active. You guys are around the other side of the circle in autumn, winter, so eating different foods such as the root vegetables, yams, tubers. I've got a lot of maybe some weird ingredients here. That's lotus root in the autumn chart, and purple potatoes. And then in winter, all your root vegetables, anything that grows under the ground, including burdock here and beetroot. They're all very, very nourishing foods for that season. I'll just see if there's any other foods that I want to mention. Parsnips, radishes of all kind, burdock, yam. And then there's other ingredients for winter as well, which are really nourishing. So things like even different whole grains in different seasons is really important. So a lot of us tend to eat the same thing all year round. And I want to encourage people to eat according to the season. On this slide, we'll get into a bit more as well. Other ingredients for winter are kidney beans, black lentils, even meats. If you're a meat eater, I used to be a very big meat eater. I'm not so much these days, but having different meats in winter and summer. For example, in winter, having things like lamb and beef, and summer having things like chicken and fish as a very general comment on that. And if you're vegetarian or vegan, again, different pulses, beans in different seasons. So keeping that variety through the seasons is really important. The next cycle, in terms of understanding therapy and energy, is this one that I want to present, and it's very much a feeling sense. So again, I'll start at spring. And the energy there is upwards. So you see the arrows going up. This corresponds to food, but also how we feel in our energy. And maybe even as, what was your name, Brittany, was talking about self-love. You can have different ways that you look after yourself, or you exercise, or you meditate, or you socialize in different seasons. So maybe in spring, you're reflecting on different things. Your energy, hopefully, is upwards. You're eating things that grow upwards. So think green vegetables, leek, chives, or onions, anything that's going up. It doesn't mean you can't eat the other foods as well, but that's the predominant energy of that season. If we think about spring, things are coming out, they're growing. I love to eat sprouts, alfalfa sprouts, snow pea sprouts. All that energy is really good for the body and the mind in that season. And then in summer, it's this expanding active energy. it's hot. If you live near a beach, you want to go to the beach. Maybe you want to go out in nature and hiking and walking and swimming. That's the energy that we feel. That's the energy of the food that we eat as well. I'll keep going because I know you guys are in the opposite season. So in late summer, so it's that transition gap between autumn where it's kind of cold and you just want to go indoors. There is this balancing energy. This infinity symbol here represents that. I'll give an example of this season in a moment with some foods and emotions. But that's that energy there. And actually one of the most important elements is that late summer element. It's actually the earth element, which we'll see in the next slide as well. And then there's autumn energy. So probably how you're all feeling right now. I don't know where everyone is, but I think Dina's in New York, and in the US, it's getting cold, and in some places extremely cold. If anyone's in Europe, it's already snowing. So that downward focused energy where you just want to kind of hibernate and go inside and make a cup of tea or hot chocolate. And that corresponds to the food that you eat as well. We'll start to crave more baked foods, more warming foods, soups and stews. So that's corresponding with the energy. And in winter, there is this watery, spirally energy in terms of, but it's also downward energy essentially. So that's like you just want to stay in bed and hibernate. And I'm sure you guys, I mean, it's evening in the US. So that's in terms of times of day as well. I haven't put that as a cycle, but this follows, everything is a cycle. So this follows the time of day. So the morning is the spring, noontime is lunchtime, afternoon is late summer, and autumn is probably about where you are now, 5, 6 p.m. And then winter is bedtime and rest time. So as we start to think about food and energy in this way, it starts to make sense that there should be variety and this flow. Movement is really important. One of the premises of all natural therapies, but especially in Chinese medicine, is stagnation. We don't want to be stuck in any of these with what we eat or how we feel as well. So the next slide here is about different organs. In every season, there are different organ pairs, so there's 2 together. There's actually one more, but I haven't put it in here. It's if you go for acupuncture, you might know about your pericardium, but it also goes in summer. But for the introductory class, I've just left it here. So in different organs, we want to look after and nourish, in different seasons, we want to look after different organs. So for you guys, it's lungs and large intestine. Lots of people get a lot of coughs, asthma, mucus in the lungs, sinus problems. It's that autumn element, autumn season externally, but also the foods that we may eat. And large intestines are our ability to detox and have regular bowel movements and get enough fiber. It's really, really important in autumn season. I'm going to assume everyone's in autumn. If anyone is in the Southern Hemisphere, we can talk about spring, summer. So yeah, that's the organs. And then we go into the elements themselves. So in spring, it's the wood element. Summer, it's a fire element. Earth element is late summer, metal element in autumn, and the water element in winter. These may or may not mean anything to you right now, but I just want to put it out so you start to understand the elements. And I really encourage anyone who's interested in this topic to read more. I have a book list at the end of my presentation, ask me some questions, and also go and see an acupuncturist or a Chinese doctor if you're interested in that. And if you've had any treatments, whether it's massage or acupuncture in the past, or you've been watching Zoe cook, very, very interesting to learn more about these cycles, these elements, as well as your own element, which I will get to in a moment. The other thing on the 5 elements is in Chinese medicine, would diagnose, I'm not a TCM doctor, I work with doctors and acupuncturists, but on the food side of things, because it's really important in between your sessions at the doctor or the acupuncturist to eat for that element or that condition that you have. So this is used, these 5 elements, in understanding illnesses, in prescribing foods, herbs and medicines, even recipes that a certain person should eat. And it's very, very individual. very different to Western medicine, where we would get medications and everyone gets the same for diabetes or the same for heart conditions. It's very, very individual in terms of what your constitution is, which is your elements, and your condition, what you're presenting with. Cycles are also really important in the lunar cycle, the menstruation cycle. I see that when I was looking through the participants, there was some male participants, predominantly female. So you can take this 5-element cycle and cycles in general through your 4 weeks in the month. And the water winter element represents the menstruation, and then the spring energy is the first week after your menstruation, after your period. So again, living in this cycle, living in harmony and balance is the ultimate goal of these topics. And the question I have, just a generic question to throw out there, is how many of us are living in flow and out of balance or in balance, and with cycles, because a lot of us are eating out of balance or eating the same the whole year. Okay, the 5 elements, if you are interested in this topic, you can take a screenshot. I'm happy to share this as well with Dina and everyone. Just takes it another layer with each of the elements. So you can see the organ, the element, the season, the organ pair, so liver and gallbladder in the first one. And then the colors are really important for food, but also what you resonate with and what will help you. If so, I will get to a little diagnosis in a moment, but I'm a liver person, a liver and spleen, or wood and earth element, and I love green. I absolutely like, it's my favorite color by far. I resonate with the forest. I used to have a green feature wall in my house where I just like had one wall just painted green. So it's really important to understand, even though we have 5 elements, which foods, which colors, seasons resonate with you and which will support your health even more, and or which are your weakest organs and that you need to nourish with some more attention and more care. There is also this second last line here. So wind, heat, damp, dry, cold. These are the elements in nature that your organ or your organ pair or your constitution don't like. So I mentioned I'm a wood or liver person. So wind, I can't stand the wind. Like if it's windy outside, if it's windy and I'm walking or on a boat or in a just at the beach, anytime, it's just horrible. I can't stand wind. So if any of these start to resonate, you might feel that, oh yeah, maybe I have element in me more so, or it's out of balance, and you can eat and treat yourself so that you're more in balance and in more flow with your own element, as well as the seasons and the surroundings outside, externally. So the next slide. So this is the fun part. There's 2 fun parts. One is the cooking at the end, the cooking styles. And this is a bit of practical information. So I've taken this link and I can post it in the chat unless Dina can do it now, but there's no rush. So there's many ways to look up your elements. I know Zoe has a wonderful quiz on her website, which asks a bunch of questions. A lot of Chinese doctors and acupuncturists will also ask questions to get to your constitution. This is a nice easy one based on 9-star key, which is a Japanese astrology based on 5 elements. It's super easy. You put in birth date and birth time, and if you're male or female, and you get 3 numbers. And your 3 numbers are one of the elements. As I said, we all have the elements, but we have predominant elements. So I know a lot of people are familiar with Ayurveda and the doshas, but not many people know about their elements. It's just another perspective, another view, a way in to understand and increase your body awareness. So then you get these numbers here, and you can see 1 is water, 2, 5, and 8 are earth, 3 and 4 are wood, 6 and 7 are metal, and 9 is fire. I know this may not mean so much, but I really encourage you to do the quiz, the birth date calculation online, and then read up on it. You can look up 9-star key readings. I do sessions for people to explain a lot of the food, the emotional tendencies, the personality, as well as how you communicate with yourself and other people, just based purely on your predominant elements. So your first element is who you are at your core. Your second number is your physical condition. So I mentioned I'm an earth element. So that's what shows up in times of stress, which is my digestion. The earth element, I'm prone to getting stress, and my whole core digestive organs will tense up. That leads to other health conditions as well. And there's a lot of people who have issues with that digestion element and that part of our body. And the third number is what people see when they meet you. That is also a wood element or a tree element. So just as an example, before we get back into the food, I find this is really fun and really nice way to understand the cycles in yourself. So my earth element is my weakest one. So that's your spleen, stomach, and pancreas. So when you're stressed, as I mentioned, you suffer digestive orders and imbalances easily. Anything from a little bit of pain or tension all the way to like diarrhea or indigestion and inability to process food, but also process life. So the beauty of Chinese medicine and food therapy is that it's not just food, it's emotional tendencies and emotional susceptibilities as well. So just a few examples. I personally, as well as everybody's stomach and spleen, really enjoy things like millet, yams, pumpkin or squash, sweet potatoes, chickpeas, cauliflower, things that are soft, warm, and very easy to digest. And the stomachs and spleen and pancreas really dislike cold things. So cold temperature things, such as ice cream, ice cubes, dairy, wheat, and gluten aren't recommended as well. So with this lens of food therapy, you start to see why or how a lot of people are suffering from different conditions in the modern world, because we're all having a lot of cold things, a lot of dairy. And this goes to like vegan ice cream too, even though it's not animal products or dairy, it's cold and it's creamy. It has that same effect if you have an issue with your stomach or spleen. So I know this has kind of jumped ahead, so I'd like to go back a little bit after the emotions, back to the food and the kitchen. But last comment out of interest, this is more of the emotional side. So this is the depths that we can take the elements to. So understanding if, for example, myself, if as an earth element, when I'm in balance, I'm happy. Like today, I'm balanced emotionally, physically, and mentally, energetically. And when I'm not, I get this feeling of being literally bogged down. I feel very, my energy goes down into the digestion area and the legs. So, and I can fix this with food. I can fix this with meditation, self-love practices, can do all sorts of different things to tie it in. But essentially, if I'm not eating right, this is going to affect my physical and emotional states. So let's go back to the kitchen. That's on a little tour. I do hope that you plug in your numbers and find out your elements. And if you're interested, we can talk more about those. So 5 elements also have the colors, which I mentioned briefly just now in that slide, and also 5 tastes. It's important to cook with different flavors and different ingredients. Again, in that cycle, in throughout the year, how you feel as well. So, for example, I'm in spring, summer now, but if I'm feeling like really agitated and chaotic and like, oh, it's too hot, or it's too, I've been thinking too much or worrying, then change my energy back into the opposite element in the US, and I can have foods that are really grounding and earthing and just bring me back down and stabilize me. So I can play, it's like working magic in the kitchen, just by choosing different ingredients and different tastes and different colors. So the 5 flavors are spicy, sour, salty, and sweet. These correlate with the organs, these correlate with the seasons. So for you guys, definitely a lot of foods, end of summer going into autumn, and looking after your lungs. So not having foods that are going to congest lungs. Actually, dairy is one of them. And then here also in this beautiful slide, we have different cooking methods, which we're going to go into in a moment. So a little bit more on the 5 flavors. This one is definitely a big slide, I know. One for screen taking a photo and saving for later, by all means. Just to explain that the flavors go with the different seasons. So we'll start again at spring and wood. So the sour flavor is when it's in balance, you can use it more like vinegars in your salads in summer, pickled and fermented foods like sauerkraut. In summer, having a lot of foods that are bitter slightly, so a lot of dark leafy greens like kale are really good, but then too much will cause an imbalance. So it's very much about balance in everything that we do, everything that we think, and everything that we cook. So not eating deep fried foods all year round. And on that note, not even eating salads all year round, even though that they're healthy, to have that balance so that you're having maybe a warm salad if you're a salad fan, and adding different ingredient in your salad, for example, in autumn, late summer and autumn, where you're having pumpkin or squash that's roasted, and then having different foods in the pungent flavors in autumn, and then the salty flavors in winter. So I hope this gives more inspiration than overwhelm, but I want to give you as much information to reflect on it. And as I said, it is a big topic to cover in 30 minutes, but I just want to put it out there because I'm very passionate about it. And for me, it's definitely helped over the years understand how I can change my health through different flavors, different foods, and understanding the function of organs. When you go and see a Chinese doctor or an acupuncturist, these are the slides that they will probably show you. Very simply, food is cold or hot. And there is this theory, a notion in Chinese medicine that there are such things as cold foods and hot foods that give you heat or cool you down. I think the easiest examples are watermelon in summer, cools you down. So do cucumbers and other types of melons. And then hot foods warm you up, such as I mentioned, lamb before, ginger, garlic, and all those beautiful herbs and spices like cinnamon, nutmeg, cloves that warm you up in winter. So they tend to see it from a temperature point of view, which is really interesting. And I think that it has a lot of validity. I just like the cycles. It's more flowy and more organic and more creative for me than lists of food. But I put them in here as another one, last one, just to show you the kinds of food therapy that are traditionally taught, shared. And if you play with different foods, so go and have watermelon tomorrow and see how you feel. If you live in New York, you're probably going to feel a little bit cold. Your stomach's probably going to go, and it's definitely local or seasonal. It's probably come from a tropical place. So I'm not advising that you do, but try and self-experiment with this idea that food has energy and temperature and see how you feel. See what you gravitate towards. Most people aren't living in this central balanced state. It's very hard to be there and stay there because we'll tend to crave different foods if we're stressed or if we're too relaxed, or if we're tired. Most people are just tired and low on energy. That leads to the cravings. But go with your gut and your intuition in how you eat, and try and experiment with different foods. So we shift gear to the kitchen, and I don't know how many people like cooking these days. It's a dying art, and I actually have a secret wish to interview grandmas all over the world on their food therapy and food energetics, because a lot of the older generations all over the world, whether they're in the US or South America or Africa or Australia, we have a lot of indigenous wisdom here in the Aboriginals. I would just love to go and hang out and learn how they cooked intuitively. But this is the start. This is the start. If you aren't a cook, or you are a cook, but you cook the same things and you love using the oven, for example, or you love making salad, this list of cooking styles gives another perspective on food. So the top one being raw, is about relaxing, expansive So if you eat salads and raw vegetables, it doesn't matter. We won't talk about season. It's obviously it's better in spring and summer. You're going to feel different. So if we use the example of the carrot earlier, if you eat a raw carrot, or you grate your carrot and put it in a salad, or you make a carrot grated carrot salad, or pickle it, that energy is very different to deep frying the carrot, tempura style, down at the other end, which is very contracting, which is what you want in winter. You want this density of the carrot. I'm not talking about nutrition anymore. I'm purely talking energy, by the way. Whereas if you want a nice balanced sweetness of the carrot to come out, you're probably going to saute it or boil it. So if you can imagine it, or if you close your eyes and just feel like the different ways you can prepare a carrot or any food, it's going to give you different energy. It'll give you different satisfaction. It'll give you different sweetness, different, a carrot that's raw is very refreshing. There's a lot of water. It's got that orange, or even a carrot juice. That's actually probably a better example. Most people can relate. If you just choose like 3 carrots and you drink it, you're going to get that sugar hit. It's going to feel great. You're going to feel cleansed. Whereas if you bake the carrot or in the oven for 40 minutes with rosemary and maple syrup, it's going to taste and give you very, very different energy. So yeah, I'd love to encourage people to play with their food, and the way that it's prepared. As I said, same ingredient, but tried in different ways. You'll start to feel and see the differences. So a summary on this before we have I have to put some food photos in, so I'll go through some food photos before we wrap up. So food energetics is understanding the way food is grown, the climate, the direction. So direction being that energy, either down or up, or, so a nice example I didn't give you, sorry, in the middle was the balanced nature of a pumpkin or an onion is that earth element. So it's grown on the ground or just under the ground. And that's a really nice way to balance your energy at any time. If you're feeling stressed, go for all those vegetables that are growing on or just beneath the ground, sweet potatoes included. They give you this natural sweetness and relaxing effect. Secondly, understand the type of food that it is, and the energy that it carries. So a lettuce is very different to a beef hamburger. It's very different to a brown rice. It's very different to a sea vegetable. They all give you different energy. Learn if there's any functional properties of the food. That's Western nutrition as well as Chinese medicine. And then we just covered knowing how different cooking styles give you different energy. And basically everything that I'm covering today is about balance and a feeling sense. So developing your feeling sense for food in those cycles. Okay, so some food photos. So on the left here, we have like a saute. It's a very light. This is green beans and beetroot actually with some sea vegetables. So very, very light. And then on the right, we have pumpkin and red bean stew. So it's that warming, nourishing energy. So one is more of an example of spring, summer, and one is more an example of autumn and winter. This is an example of having something raw, something cooked, something steamed. So the broccoli is steamed, and that brown circular thing is a daikon radish that's being grilled. You've got like all your elements on one plate. You've even got natto, which is fermented as well. So trying to create balance with color, with cooking styles, and with ingredients. And food should look and taste beautiful. So for yourself, you don't need to be a gourmet chef. You just need to find some these elements, this balance, at least, I don't know, a couple times a week. If you can't cook every day, I fully understand that. Just do what you can. Some examples of functional foods in the food therapy modality. So on the left, we have a miso soup. Miso is very nourishing in that you have some shiitake mushrooms and vegetables, very, very cleansing, very, very light. So if you're in the mood for that, that's the kind of food that you make. And then on the right, black sesame pudding. So black sesames are incredible for the kidneys. And all of you in winter at the moment, get a lot of dark foods into your life, black, red, blue, like blueberries, berries, black sesame, beans. All those are really nourishing to the kidney, which you need in winter. And then I thought I would end with dessert because that's always a good place to end. And in terms of energy, sweets are really important. It's one of the 5 flavors. And energetically, it's really important to have sweet things in our life. It makes us happy. It makes us relaxed. Especially for women, there's a reason why females crave dessert more than men, because we are more yin. I haven't talked about yin or yang deliberately. It's a little bit complicated, but women are very yin, and we should be more, compared to men, more soft. This idea of being a strong woman and we can do it all is fine, but we also have to nourish our yin, which is also our blood. It's also our menstruation. It's also all the organs. We need this sweetness in our life. And what better way than having dessert? It also helps overcome living in big cities, fast pace, overworking, poor sleep, frustration, eating too much salt and meat and heavy foods. That's why a lot of people are craving these sweet things and desserts and sweet beverages. But what we can do is use healthy things. So some examples like brown rice syrup or fruits, dried fruits, cinnamon, maple syrup, blackstrap molasses, using sweet vegetables in our cooking as well, such as pumpkin, carrots, brown rice, and millet. When you change your ingredients, and these are not just for dessert, but when you change your cooking ingredients to have sweet flavors, as well as having more healthy sweet desserts, it shifts your energy quite significantly. So I highly recommend looking into healthy sweets and not being guilty. I have dessert for breakfast sometimes, because it's like a lovely muesli with a beautiful berry jam that I've made. This is tofu cheesecake you're looking at on the right. There's absolutely no refined sugar, there's no gluten, there's no nasties in there. You could have that for breakfast, technically, and it'll make you very happy. So yeah, understanding the energetic sweetness and sweet foods is something that I'm quite passionate about as well. So back to the serious stuff. This is just a list of, this is more Western nutrition. So just when people ask me, what should I eat? Or what should they eat? I'm like, anything that nourishes the body, that is going to give you vitamins, minerals. It's doing something good for your body. So it's nutrient dense, as opposed to being an anti-nutrient. An anti-nutrient are all the junk foods, chemicals, food codes, processed food, junk food, all the bad stuff. And eating real whole foods, whole grains. I've written digestible protein that works for you, because honestly, a healthy human being should be able to eat anything, whether it's meat or lentils. It's up to you what protein you choose. It has to work for you. It has to give you enough energy, enough protein and amino acids that help you function. Fruits, vegetables. I've included root vegetables and sea vegetables because they're a forgotten category, and they are very, very special energetically as well as nutritionally. Spices and herbs, fermented foods, and I've written functional foods. So if you're aware of foods that help you in Chinese medicine, we have a huge list. I know Zoe cooks a lot with them. And I also try to modernize a lot of these traditional ingredients that you find in like herb stores and put them into like everyday foods and porridges and pies and desserts and salads. So feel free to reach out and learn more about all those fabulous functional foods. Yes, it's a little summary. Just eat seasonally and locally. Pay attention to your own constitution condition. You can start by learning about your elements. You can definitely go and have a consultation with an acupuncturist doctor to get a diagnosis for your body type and what's going on. So that's where I fit in. I fit in after the doctor. So after you've seen someone and you know what to do with the foods, the elements, I can point you in the right direction with recipes and foods and understand yourself and your elements better. And then get into cycles of nature, whether it's daily, weekly, or monthly, or seasonally, of course, and try and live more in flow and finding this balance with your own energy levels, and definitely with your cooking and your meals. There's some books here. Some are Chinese medicine. Heal with Whole Foods by Paul Pitchford is like a classic for food and energy and seasons, and 2 macrobiotic books at the end. So I really do encourage everyone to learn more about nutrition through the lens of 5 elements, and through Chinese medicine. There's a lot of depth. I feel that I've just not even scratched the surface in 30 minutes, but just presenting a new perspective and some other examples, and hopefully more inspirational than anything else. And those are my details if you'd like to reach out on Instagram or email. My website is not ready yet, but that's a work in progress. Thank you very much.
Kimberly, you had me at eat sweets. I just, that's all I needed to hear from you. Eat sweets and I'm sold. Thank you so much. This has been so informational. And what some of us were chatting in the box here, some of us were sharing each other's numbers, like, you know, I'm a 591, all of a sudden I know that. And one of the things
Excellent.
that came up is about, you know, we don't often, we in the Western world, in US, I think specifically United States of America, we forget that plants are living and carry energy.
Yep.
So there's a transfer there. So the way that you cook and the way that you eat, and the fact that you were talking about like the downward growing foods and the upward growing foods, all of that visual representation makes so much sense. Now I understand why I have seasonal affective disorder. I understand why things don't sit right with my gut. This was phenomenal. Thank you. Thank you. And I put some takeaways.
My pleasure.
Little summary bullets and stuff. I put some takeaways in the chat box.
Excellent. Oh, and you got the link there. Great.
Yes,
Thank
I put
you.
the link in there. And I'm going to be quiet if anybody else wants to chime in before we move to Samantha, who's our last presenter.
That was awesome, Kimberly. Thank you so much for sharing that.
My pleasure. Thank you.
You see what just happened there? That's Kimberly in Australia talking to Samantha, who's in Hawaii. This is a global event. I'm not kidding. This is so fun. Kimberly, I'm going to put your splash screen up here. Just give me one sec. Just before I move in. So let me just go from here. So this is what Kimberly was talking about, her Instagram, Facebook information. And just to reiterate for those of you who were joining us later in the day, that you know, all the information that you're seeing here, I'm doing my best to record every session separately. Some things are running into each other, so I'm just doing it there, and I'll figure out how to edit it so that you can have the recorded session link post-event. Within maybe about a week or so, we're going to put together an email for everybody with the list of presenters, all of this information, the virtual swag bag, because a lot of people have some things that they want to give away. And there's going to be a post-event survey, and then the links to the recordings, so that if you missed anything or you had to go off and come back on again, that at least you know you can watch things after the fact. And I'm blown away because, again, not to make this the telethon, I keep joking about this as the telethon, but the fundraising behind the scenes, it's almost up to, I think, $700 and something. I'm completely floored. Thank you, everybody who's been able to chip in. Like I said, even a small amount counts, but if you cannot, please do not feel bad about that, because that's okay. This has been a financially challenging year for a lot of us. Okay, so let me stop this recording